second jewel of racing's Triple Crown comes up this Saturday. It is time for the Daily Racing Form Preakness Preview Show. I am Gino Bacola alongside my good friend and co-host Alexa Zepp. Alexa, we get that quick turnaround for the Preakness. We were just here talking Derby a few weeks ago. Are you ready to do it all over again?
I'm so ready, Gino. I'm excited. Gino and I actually are both heading to Baltimore this week. We're going to be there to watch it all and party, right?
Looking forward to it. And we're going to add another member to the party right now. Our good friend Darren Zocali from Twin Spires is going to join us. DZ, how's everything going on your end? And let us know some of the big stuff happening for Twin Spires this week.
Yeah, I'm still in Derby recovery mode. When you work for Churchill, it takes about 51 weeks, and then you got another week to prepare for next week. But everything's going well. Yeah, we've got a great promotion at Twin Spires this week. We have a money back offer on every race Friday and Saturday at Pimlico. So not just the Black Eyed Susans, not just the stakes races, certainly not just the Preakness. Every race from start to finish throughout both cards, we have a money back opportunity for you on Pimlico for the 2 days. So kind of following the pattern that we had Derby week, it was very well received. We had record-breaking participation, record-breaking handle. Might as well do it all over again, Gino.
Yeah, I took advantage of that one because if your horse gets second or third, you get your $10 back, right? You wouldn't bet to win, and I got a lot of second and thirds.
That's what's nice. As long if you're seeing the ball well, okay, at least you'll get rewarded in some way, shape, or form, and you'll be able to get another shot later on in the card in another different wager or later on in another racing day. So DZ, we're going to go through the field for the Preakness while we have Darren. He can share his thoughts with us. Later on in the show, we'll get into the Preakness pick 5, the one that leads you right into the Preakness, and I'll actually give you that pick 5. Alexa will give you a pick 3. You can get all the help you want when you scan the QR code on your screen right now. A free Preakness wagering guide, tons of information, selections, analysis, individual analysis for each of the horses in the Preakness, everything you need. As Darren pointed out, it's much more than just the one Preakness race. Friday at Pimlico, it's Black Eyed Susan Day. That's their feature race. 14 races on the card, and then 14 more on Saturday. Let's meet the field for this year's Preakness, and we will start with the number 1, goal-oriented. DZ, we've got trainer Bob Baffert, who has won this race 8 times. Flavien Prat actually won this thing a couple years back on Rombauer as well. Looked like Baffert was going to have multiple horses in this race, but after some defections, Rodriguez didn't make it in. The only one that we have left is goal-oriented, and he has speed. He draws the inside. Probably pretty simple game plan for the Bob Baffert runner, right? You think they'll just get aggressive with him?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and you watch his race on Derby Day at Churchill Downs, he actually, even though he shows a lead at every point of call on the chart, he actually didn't go to the front right out of the gate. He had a couple of long shots in front of him, and he was pretty full of himself and pulling at Flavien Prat just a little bit. And it looked like Prat kind of gave him his head, sliced his way through in between horses, and he made the lead before they got to the opening quarter, was allowed to establish some pretty reasonable fractions, and was just the best horse that day. He is a gorgeous son of Not This Time, by the way. He certainly is going to win the beauty contest in addition to being a $425,000 yearling. Baffert is actually really good with these quick turnarounds. If you take a look at over the last 5 years, horses that he runs back between 12 and 16 days win at about a 33% clip. So no surprise that he's done exceedingly well in the Preakness, because he seems to do well when he turns these horses right back around. But he did draw on the inside, which might limit some of his tactical abilities. As you said, if you don't go to the front, you run the risk of kind of getting stuck down inside behind the speed. So you would imagine that they're going to be pretty aggressive here with a lightly raced colt with a lot of upside.
Alexa, it's pretty remarkable. This horse debuted on April the 6th. Yeah. So in a month and a half, he goes from debut winner to winning his second start. And then 2 weeks later, he's in the Preakness here, and he's only 6-1 on the morning line.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, if you're wondering why he didn't make the Derby, he just was a late bloomer, you might say. So, and kind of what Darren and Gina both mentioned, right? This is quick turnaround from the Derby. And so some horses in here who are not coming out of the Derby or coming out of Derby Day, like goal-oriented, might have a little bit of an upper leg with having a little bit more rest time, a little bit more time to get comfortable and be in their prime. But like Darren said, Bob Baffert's pretty good with those horses on the short rest. He did win, like I said, on Derby Day, which was sloppy, wet, nasty track. And the forecast right now, I I need to look at it again. I know Friday is going to rain. Saturday, I think there might be some rain. So we might have another wet track. So it is good to know that he likes the surface.
DZ Journalism just put up another awesome effort in the Kentucky Derby. I mean, he did nothing wrong. He got a nice trip. He moved to the lead early. He just couldn't hold off a horse who I think you called on this race the maybe the best horse in the field, Sovereignty, who ended up winning that. So I mean, journalism right back. I love as a horse racing fan that he's coming back. He's going to be really tough to beat if he shows back up with that same type of effort.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, if he runs back to his Kentucky Derby race, he's going to win. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. There's just no way around that. Somebody needs to jump up and run an astronomical race in order to beat his race in the Derby. The question is, does he run that race again coming back in 2 weeks? Now,
Kind of like an
similarly,
NBA team on a back-to-back, right?
yeah, exactly. Similarly, Mike McCarthy does have great numbers. He's 10 for 31 over the last 5 years, cutting horses back in from 12 to 16 days. So, I don't blame McCarthy for taking a shot because he certainly seems to have a knack for doing it. Like you said, he ran a winning race. He's going to get a good setup again. There's plenty of horses in this race that want to go forward. He's a proven commodity over and off track. As Alexis said, if there is rain in the forecast, it shouldn't dissuade those that want to back him once again. The only thing that's going to dissuade you here is going to be the price. He's 8-5 on the morning line. It's still a Triple Crown race. So every once in a while, you have horses take non-handicapping type money like a Render Judgment did, in the Kentucky Derby. If he's 8-5, 9-5, he's value. If he's even money, he's not. You have to make that determination for yourself. But he is the best horse in this field. There's no question about that.
Had to give a little NBA shout out because DZ's got the Knicks hat on after a great a few days for the Knicks. Alexa, I mean, this guy is just so good. I mean, he's the horse to beat, right? Journalism.
He is. I'm not going to try to beat him. I mean, he was my pick in the Derby. He's going to be my pick in here. I think it's going to set up perfectly for him, like Darren's saying. I mean, other than Sandman, I mean, he's kind of the only true closer in here, and he's going to get that set up with a contentious pace to run at. So I really like journalism.
As you know, I would be remiss not to give a shout out to our friend Andrew Champagne because he was a big Rombauer guy, and Mike McCarthy, of course, won the Preakness with Rombauer. So a big shout out to AC.
That's a great point. And speaking of winning the Preakness, one of the best stats I saw the last few days doing the research for this, D. Wayne Lucas, the coach who's won the Preakness 7 times, he has won Triple Crown races in 5 decades now, which is just insane. The 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, and the 2020s. Started in 1980, winning the Preakness with Codex, and he won last year with Seize the Gray. So how cool is it, DZ, that he's won it 7 times, has all this history, and then the pilot aboard the horse American Promise this year is a local from Maryland riding the Preakness for the first time. Doesn't get much cooler than that.
No, it's true. And he took a Virginia path on the way to the Kentucky Derby as well. Yeah, I mean, this is the typical D. Wayne Lucas. Yeah, the horse is doing well. We're just going to run him back in 2 weeks. That's the old school mentality that Lucas had from the 80s and the 90s. That's why we saw him run so many horses. That's why he was able to win some of these races with horses that, you typically would not expect to perform at this level. Commendable in the Belmont Stakes, comes to mind, for example, who I think went into that race off like a 16th place finish in the Kentucky Derby. How good is this horse is the question, though. When he gets away from the best competition, he runs well. When he runs against the best 3-year-olds, he typically does not. He may have bounced off a big figure in the Virginia Derby. He may have not liked the sloppy sealed racetrack at Churchill Downs, even though he has a win over a muddy track at Oakland. His 2 races in the slop at Churchill are not good. So there is a potential excuse if you're looking to make one for him. But he does need to improve dramatically. You are going to get paid, though, because he's going to be a huge number. He's a fringe exotics player for me, and it would very much surprise me, even though it is Lucas, and never dismiss Lucas in a race like this, but he would surprise me in this spot, Gino.
Alexa, as we get set for our first commercial break, talk to us about American Promise. Then we'll take a break. When we return, we'll pick up with Heart of Honor.
Yeah, I have to agree. I just can't get past the fact that he hasn't hit the board in a graded stakes race. I think this is just probably too tough a spot, but you have to respect the coach.
The coach will try to put him on the front end. We'll take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll pick up with the number 4, Heart of Honor. right into the number 4, Heart of Honor. That's where we left off. DZ, what a cool story for this horse. Trainer Jamie Osborne is going to have his 23-year-old daughter riding this horse. So they're going to be teaming up, father-daughter combo in the Preakness. I think we've only had like 3 or 4 different women actually have a mount in the Preakness previously. There have not been a ton through the years. This would be an incredible story. This is a horse who has never been worse than second in the 6 races that he's been in. He finished second in the UAE Derby. That's the race that Forever Young won last year before coming over here and having all that success. What do you think about Heart of Honor?
Yeah, but this year's UAE Derby did not have a Forever Young in it.
Exactly.
Admire Daytona, it seemed that his lone purpose in the Kentucky Derby was to stop in Burnham Square's face on the far turn and cost him any chance of getting the ticket, much to my dismay. But no, look, I respect the horse. Any horse that's never missed the exacta in 6 lifetime starts, you have to respect that. It's a great story. But admire Daytona. Obviously, the form was not flattered in the Kentucky Derby by any stretch of the imagination. Even Luxor Cafe, who handled Admire Daytona easily in a race in Japan, was a non-factor in the Kentucky Derby this year. It seemed like the Japanese runners were not at the same level as they were in 2024. So Heart of Honor, while he's a very nice horse, love the story, respect any horse that does as well as he does. I would be astonished, actually. He would actually be the horse that would shock me more than anybody else if he were to jump up and win this race.
Alexa, can you build a case for him?
I mean, I think he's a wild card in here. I could see playing him underneath for a price if you really like. First time in North America. So if you're looking at the PPs that we have for you on the screen, the reason why there's no early pace, no late pace, it's not on the pace projector, is because we don't have any information for him running here in the States yet. So just a note about the time from US PPs.
Alexa, while we have you, let's talk about the 5 Pay Billy. And we actually have a replay of his last race, which was a win at Laurel Park. It was the Federico Tessio. That's the race that qualified him to get into the Preakness. He's been in really good form. He's won 4 of his last 5 races. He just is going to have to step up and run a little bit faster against this field. What do you think about him?
Yeah, we actually talked about this race a bunch in our preview last Friday because 2 horses that ran in that race, Surfside Moon and Happily Delusional, came back to run in the Peter Pan last weekend. They both disappointed, which I don't think bodes super well for Pay Billy in here, who's already kind of light on his speed figures. And I think he'll want the lead as well and probably won't get it. So for me, I'm leaving Pay Billy out.
DZ feels like he'll be one of the longer shots in the field. Can you make a case for Pay Billy?
I can't make a case for him to win. With the right setup, he could be a horse that I always followed the notion that almost anybody could run 3rd or 4th in a race. He's an improving type. He's done well on the local tracks. I've seen horses like him who have done well in the Maryland circuit before run well. I remember the horse that ran second to War Emblem back in 2002 was a similar type. His figures are on the lighter side. He would need to jump up tremendously to win, but with the right setup, if he sat 3rd or 4th and handled that trip, could he run 3rd or 4th? Yeah.
The number 6, River Thames, is a horse who was behind Sovereignty in the Fountain of Youth. He looked like he was going to beat Sovereignty that day, and Sovereignty really surged late, got him right on the wire. Then in the Bluegrass, I'd say he was a little disappointing. We have the replay here. He just was a little flat late. But Darren, when you kind of look at those 2 races and the horses who he faced, it feels like he's coming out of the stronger races. Burnham Square won this race. He came back and he ran really well when having trouble in the Kentucky Derby. And then using Sovereignty as kind of a measuring stick for him. If he runs something similar to that Sovereignty form, that should put him in a good spot. He didn't run in the Derby. His connections decided to point for the Preakness. And it's crazy that Pletcher and Irad, they've never won either one of them. You wouldn't really think about that when you think of those 2. I just think he's in a really nice spot. I figure he's going to run well in here. How do you feel about River Thames?
I love everything about him, except my concern is, will he want to go this far? That was the concern for him in the Bluegrass Stakes. It's the concern I would have had for him in the Kentucky Derby, and it's the concern I have for him here. I think he's in a great spot in post 6. I think he's shown versatility. I think he could sit in the first flight of Stalkers and work out a great trip. He's got the right trainer. He's got the right jockey. I think he's coming out of the right races. I think the Florida circuit and the California circuit were the 2 strongest by far. He took the Kentucky Derby winner to a neck in the Fountain of Youth Stakes in a Preakness that doesn't have all of the firepower that the Derby had. That's definitely good enough for me, especially if he's going to be between 9-2 and 5-1. I'll take the upside and run the chance that maybe this is a little bit farther than he wants to go.
Alexa, what are you going to do with River Thames?
I mean, I would just echo what you guys are saying. A strong contender in here. I have him second behind journalism.
Sandman next up. We know that Sandman will come with that big late kick. He just needs a little help up front, right, Alexa? He's a closer, so I have him under. I think if things were to set up for him, he could run well, but quick turnaround, and he just needs that help up front.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the best setup for him. I also don't think he liked the wet track in the Derby, which he might get again here. I know his trainer said he came out of the Derby great, but I'm not leaving him totally off my selections, but he's near the bottom.
DZ, what do we do with the strong closer, Sandman?
Yeah, just like the Derby for me, he's a complete toss out. And it has to do with the value and the price. So I'm of the opinion that I think River Thames and journalism, they're both going to hit the board. And if that's the case, what am I going to do with including Sandman? There's going to be no return there. I need to get some value into the lower parts of the exotics. My problem with him, sure, the excuse could be he didn't like the off track. But when you go back and you watch the Derby, the horses that ran 1, 2, 3, 4 in the Derby came from 16th, 10th, 15th, and 19th. So it was a close.
It should have set up for him.
It should have set up for him. And he was tracking Sovereignty down the backstretch. When Sovereignty started to make his move, he stayed with him for about 3/16 of a mile, and then there was nothing left in the tank. And Final Gambit even went by him like he was tied to a pole at the 3/16 pole. So based on that performance in a race that should have set up well for him, and he had a very clean trip in the Derby, even though he was a little bit wide, at a short price, he's a complete toss out for me.
DZ, we got about a minute left in this segment. I want to get your thoughts on the two outside horses and then your selections. Alexa, in our next segment, you and I will go through our selections, and then we're going to give our Preakness bet. So, DZ, give us a thought on Clever Again and then Goster.
Clever Again, high upside individual. Pedigree says that the distance should be no problem. There's going to be speed signed on to his inside quality speed. That's going to maybe push him a little bit. He's got a strong win over Gaming last time out. I respect his talent. I respect his connections. He's a use for me. Gosger is a horse that is yet to run a figure that's fast enough to win this race. I do respect the fact that he's put it all together very quickly. And if he does get the right setup, I could see him clunking up for a piece at a price, but no more than that.
Let's flash those selections for Darren Zocali. And remember, folks, twinspires.com, that's the place to go. And remember, you can check out all of the wagering information and all of the bonuses Darren was talking about. So, DZ, best of luck, my friend. Thanks for joining us. Don't go anywhere, folks. Preakness bets in just a minute. Big thanks to Darren Zocali for joining us. Alexa, we didn't get a chance to talk about our selections for the race, though. Neither one of us has the 8 Clever Again in the mix. I was just worried about how it shapes up for him because I think there's some other speeds, and this is a tough test. Was there anything you wanted to mention about the 8 or the 9 Goster?
Yeah, I mean, the 8's interesting. This will be the longest distance he's run, first time on a wet track, potentially first time facing Preakness Stakes company, against a bunch of really seasoned runners, right, who just ran in the Derby. So, I mean, but that being said, from a breeding standpoint, distance should be okay. He's fresh, unlike some of these others who are coming in off of such short rests. So, I mean, maybe if he clears and wins the battle for the lead, but I, again, have left him out of my selections.
And I threw the 9 in as like an underneath horse because I think he might be able to get a good trip. I don't know if he's good enough to win the race. I could absolutely see him maybe running 3rd or 4th at a big price. So I threw him in some of my wagers, Alexa, but let's see how you're going to wager on the Preakness coming up. We gave you and me a $100 bankroll just so folks are wondering, if you had $100 to bet on the Preakness, how would you bet it? You think journalism is going to be really tough, so half your bankroll is going to be on journalism. If he's over like 3 to 5, that's probably good value. Honestly, he probably should be like 3 to 5 against this field, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have friends texting me today saying there's no way you can bet him. Like, he's just going to be too low of odds. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I I'm not convinced that he's going to be less than even money. I think he could be, even 7 to 5. But I like him. I think he's the one to beat. I think people are going to have a really hard time beating him. So I'm going to put $50 to win on him. I'm keying him on top of everything. Like if he doesn't win, all my bets lose. But my next bet is a $30 straight exacta 2/6. So that means 2 has to get first, 6 has to get second. That's the only way that bet wins. And then a trifecta for $5. Its total cost is $20, but the base bet
5 times.
Is a $5 base bet, and it's journalism over goal oriented. The one who's the Baffert horse, and the 6 River Thames, and then the 1, 6, and 7 adding Samian in third place.
Yep. So if you add it all up, the 50 plus the 30 plus the $20 it would cost you for that trifecta, that's Alexa's $100 bankroll. So for Alexa and I, we have a lot of similar horses in the mix. Like in particular, our top 2, we both like River Thames and think he's going to run a really good race. I'll just take a little shot with him on top. What I did was I put most of my bankroll in my exacta and in my trifecta. And then what I had left over, I put to win on River Thames. Because, hey, if he's like 5-1, and there's nothing wrong with getting back like half of my bankroll right away if he were to win. Then in the exacta, Alexa, I have similarities with you. If journalism wins and River Thames runs second, we'll both hit that exacta really nicely. I also want to make sure that if for some reason Goster runs second, if one of the 2 horses that I really like win, I'll also hit that exacta. So if it comes in 2-9 or maybe 6-9, that would be River Thames and Goster or journalism and Goster. I'd win that exacta. So I give myself a little bit of flexibility there with the exacta. Then on the trifecta spot, I need either the 2 journalism to win or the 6 River Thames. Then if one of those wins, I move on to the second spot. And I think Alexa I just don't really know if some of the horses like American Promise and Goster, like I don't know if they could win, but I absolutely think they could hit the board because they have speed. They're horses that can be involved, especially if it's raining. We know American Promise has shown ability on a wet track too. So I want to make sure I've got the 3 American Promise and the 9. Those are kind of the long shots that I'm going to include in my trifecta. So if we can get one of them into the second and the third spots, I'll be in pretty good shape there. So couple different wagers from me. I'll go win, exacta, and try. Alexa will throw in a win wager and an exacta.
Yeah.
I think
I have less value in my plays, right? Because I have lower horses, but I'm playing them for a lot
more times, right?
So if I hit it, I'll still crush.
Yeah, so Alexa, exactly, right? Alexa's payouts might be a little bit less, but she'll have them more times. I might be able to get a bigger payout if we hit that trifecta correctly or even the exacta, but I'd have it less than Alexa's $30 exacta versus my $10 exacta. So that's really what it comes down to in gambling on the races, right?
How do you want to play? Win, though,
right? Yeah, and we see it really similar.
Exacta and try. So
and as we get set for our next commercial break, we want to let everybody know about the wagering guide. I think what's the key, Alexa, is just we're both looking at horses that might get those same trips. Like journalism and River Thames could be in the same spot and like in the mid pack, like 4th or 5th, maybe not have to come from as far back as Sandman. That could keep them out of traffic, keep them out of trouble. And if you want more information on these Preakness horses, on wagers to bet, on all the races on Pimlico's Saturday card, scan the QR code on your screen right there for the free wagering guide. I was actually shocked how much information they're giving away for free in that. Check that out. Shout out to Tom Q, who put that thing together. Don't go anywhere, folks. More Preakness Day when we return. So earlier on the card, before the Preakness, in race number 12, it is a really good betting race, Alexa. It is a big field going 1.125 miles on the turf course. It's called the Dinner Party. It's a grade 3 race. I think you and I and Lucia are going to have 1 or 2 dinner parties coming up in the next few days. Now, we're going to have to move quickly through this field because it's a big field. I honestly think you can make a case for almost every one of the 13 horses in here. It is so challenging. And we get things started with a horse who I've become a little familiar with out on the West Coast. This horse has some real ability, but he is a quirky horse, Alexa, because when he works out in the morning, you can see he's got a lot of ability. They've tried to get him on the lead a couple times, but like he'll kind of get stuck down on the inside. He's one of those horses who I think is really tough to ride and train, but he's got a lot of ability, and his name is really fun to say. Devon Propos, the number one here. I mean, I feel like he's a player, but you could probably say that about so many horses in here.
Yeah, it was so tough for me to decide. I ended up not having him in my top 4. He's my 5th pick in here. So if one of my horses scratches, he'd make it in my top 4. But, he's running only graded stakes since last September. He hasn't been able to secure a win, but he got second last out in the San Luis Rey at Santa Anita. His entire career since coming to the U.S. has been in California. So he's branching out here to the East Coast. His figures are right in line with the favorites in here. His late pace figure is a 111, you could see on the screen. So he'll be flying late.
The number 2, Crabs and Beer, was actually second in last year's running of this race. And I will say, I bet him in his last start, he was 43-1. He got a brutal trip. I'm not saying he was going to win that race, but he never got a shot to run late in the stretch because they all clumped up and there was a bunch of traffic. He's kind of a fun horse at the bottom of exotics. This is a really tough group, though, for him, Alexa. But what's nice is he's run well previously at Pimlico.
Yeah, I mean, he's a veteran Maryland-bred horse, 36 starts, over 400,000 in earnings. But I didn't watch that race, his last start. But when I looked just at the paper on the form, I thought that his recent form looked a bit dull to me. So I think he's versatile enough to pass some tiring horses late. But I think he's just a cut below some of the other top contenders in here.
It's a really tough group. Like Signator, who's 2 for 2 on the turf. I mean, you can't knock what he's done recently. The only concern I really have with him, though, he's not that fast early in races. He's just like a deeper closer who's probably going to be coming from way out of it. Sometimes he gets in some traffic, but he has a really good late closing kick.
Yeah, it looks like Shug, his trainer, kind of figured out the key to this guy when they switched him to the grass. And like you said, he's got a late pace of 105 that puts him in the mix. So I think there's upside there for sure. I think he could be a threat if he takes another step forward.
Next one up is Neat. He also had legitimate trouble in his last race. Early on, he got kind of shuffled back. Horses were backing up into him, and he never really got a chance to stretch his legs and show what he can do. Do you think he has a shot against a group like this?
Yeah, you hear us saying they had a tough trip. I mean, that's a lot of times what you find in big turf races, right? Where everybody comes running at the end. But
they're all looking for the same spots, right? You have a big field, they're all trying to get to those same positions and they start jamming each other up.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he's got enough tactical speed to work out a trip if things go smoother for him. So a rebound would not be the craziest surprise in here at all, but it would have to be a career best.
The number 5, Abrumar, if you look at the projector, he's one of the horses that's close to the front, Alexa. When you kind of start going through this field, there aren't that many horses who want to be on the lead. And I know one of the horses you like a little bit kind of has some speed. There aren't many of them, though. That could help Abrumar a little if he's up close early.
Yeah, I mean, he's well-traveled. He's been all around. He's 4-year-old. He's been in the hunt, but hasn't been able to get a win at this level. I do agree. He's probably going to sit up the pace and try to grind, but I think he's going to be a notch below the top tier in here.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, you're going to have Balnikov, the 6. He is a deep, deep closer. He's going to be towards the way, way back of the pack early on, but he actually won this race last year. I will say, though, kind of pointing it out with Crabs and Beer, who was second in that race, it's way tougher this year than it was last year. There are like 4 or 5 horses in the race this year that might be better than with the horses that were in last year's group. But I still do think Balnikov is a major player in here.
I agree. I mean, he won with style last year and hasn't won since, but his speed figures have stayed very competitive. He's hit the board in some big West Coast turf races. Carries that massive 120 late pace figure. So he'll be just totally dead on the board early and then flying late. And obviously he knows how to win this race and likes Pimlico.
Number 7 is Cash Equity. He's 0 for his last 17. He's run a lot of like good thirds or a close 4th or races where he's not far off, but he just hasn't been able to seal the deal in quite some time. And once it gets to like 10, 12, 15, I start worrying that there's a pattern there of horses who might just not want to win.
Yeah, he's such a trier,
He
but
is.
he's not a winner.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe underneath. But yeah, I mean, some horses don't have that drive to actually pull ahead and win the race.
The number 8 Crystal Quest faced Florida bred horses in his most recent start. He was really good in that race, but this is another pretty big step up when you face open company and horses that are bred all over the country and all over the world. Do you think Crystal Quest can compete with this group?
I think he's heading in the right direction. Just had a career best figure, like you said, in at Tampa, and then that was after a long layoff. So he looks like a horse that's on the rise. Has had back-to-back bullet workouts this month, so it's a step up in class. But I think he's pointing in the right direction.
The number 9 Irish Aces was a winner on April the 8th at Keeneland. And what was really important about that win, Alexa, they used speed. He got aggressive in that race. That was something he hadn't been doing recently, and it resulted in a win for him. So that's a positive. And then coming into this race, there aren't that many other horses that have early speed. If they try to use that same strategy here, it could be really, really helpful for him. Like, he could go a long way in this race.
Yeah, he's my top selection in here. He's, really consistent for Brendan Walsh, always is showing up. And like you said, has the speed, but also seems to be versatile and can handle different pace scenarios. So I think he's a really honest horse. I think he's a strong play in here at 10-1 odds or plus 1,000.
The number 10 is Fort Washington. He comes off a win in the Grade 3 Canadian Turf. That was back on March the 1st over at Gulfstream Park. He's been a model of consistency over the last year and a half. I mean, he pretty much shows up with like the same sort of race. And if he's facing a little too tough, maybe he'll be like underneath. If it's the right group, he can win. I think he's a major player in here. Even if he's going a little bit wide, he's actually had to be wide in some of his recent races. He just feels like another one of these horses that's all got a big shot in here, Alexa.
Yeah, I mean, I have this. My first sentence of notes is talented and reliable closer. I mean, he's so reliable. His late pace figure of 125 is eye catching for sure. I think he's peaking speed figure wise. So it would not be a shock at all. He is my third pick.
I kind of group the next two horses together, Fulmineo and Desvio. To me, they kind of remind me a little bit of each other, and they're actually coming out of the very same race where Fulmineo finished third in the Henry Clark, and Desvio finished sixth in the Henry Clark. And for both of them, they were making their first start of the year. They were making their first start in like 4 or 5 months or more. So I could see the 11 Fulmineo improving. I could see the 12 Desvio improving a little bit, but they're just going to have to get a little faster and a little bit better than what they've been running. They're also closers, so they usually drop out of it and have to come running late. You want to mention both the 11 and then get into the 12. Any thoughts you have on them?
Yeah, I don't have much to add to the 12, but for the 11, Fulmineo, I think it's really important to look at the pattern. He's consistent until they step him up to graded stakes, and then he dips. And so every time he goes up against a tougher class, he just doesn't perform. And so I think, that's part of a horse maybe not being up to snuff with some of the other classy horses. And so from that standpoint, I'm tossing.
Trickery rounds things out. This is a grade 1 winner, but drawn way to the outside. It is not going to be an easy post for Trickery. Alexa, give us a thought on Trickery, and then we'll pull up selections for this one.
I mean, he's the favorite. He's very talented, but he's going to have to try to find some ground to save drawing that post position.
Completely agree. I think he's more of an underneath type because it's an evenly matched group. And if there's just something small that can give one the advantage over the other, I'm going to lean towards them. Here's how we stack them: 9, 6, 10, 13 for Alexa. I'll put the 5 on top of the 4, 1, 6. We'll talk about pick 5s when we return, and then we'll finish it up with Alexa's pick 3. Okay, so we've got you all set up for the Preakness, and then the race right before the Preakness, that's the dinner party, that's race number 12. Now let's get into some of the wagers, and these are some of the big money wagers. They call them the multi-exotic wagers, where you're going multiple races, and you're trying to hit a lot of money for maybe not as much that you want to put in and invest. So I have a pick 5 ticket that we can go through, and it'll take us through Pimlico Saturday, starting in race number 9, and it'll lead us all the way up to the Preakness. So we already talked about the 12th and 13 races. I'll tell you who I'm using in those races when we get to them in just a moment. But this 9th race, not an easy way to start the pick 5. It's a turf sprint, 5 furlongs on the turf. The way I've sort of mapped this race out, I think the horse that's the fastest of all of them is the 6, Coppola. So I definitely want to use Coppola in case he's so much faster than everybody else that he just gets clear. But I want to make sure that if he gets pushed and he goes too fast early, I have the best closer. I think that's the number 4, Witty. So I've got the best of the speed horses in Coppola, the 6. I've got the best of the closers in the 4, Witty. And then I'm going to use 2 other horses who should be sitting kind of right in the middle. So I think I have them mapped out for how the race could play out. The 2, No Nay Hudson, I think he'll be sitting like 3rd or 4th. And then the 5, Determined Kingdom, right in that same spot. So hopefully, however the race sets up, I've got a horse that should be on the lead. I've got a couple horses who should be right behind that, and one who should be coming from way behind. So if things happen in a race that you're not expecting, I should be able to have different horses that can adapt to it no matter what happens. So hopefully we can get through that, because remember, it's like a parlay, but you just need one of these horses to win. So in the first leg, 2, 4, 5, and 6 are the horses that I'm going to use. I don't need all of them to run in order. I only need one of those horses to win, and then it's like you're moving along to the next one. So we move along to race number 10. This one is the Sir Barton. They're going to run 1 1/16 miles on the dirt. There are 3 horses who I'm going to use in this race. The number 1, Crudo, he was really fast and really impressive when he won on April the 19th at Keeneland, and now he's going to stretch out a little bit. So he was going shorter, and he was actually very fast in that race. Now going longer, he should be very much on the lead in here. So the 1 is on the ticket for me. The number 6, Invictus. What I thought was really impressive about his race, in watching it, he really didn't start running his best until late in the race. And that was in a race going 7 furlongs. So he looks like he will really like running longer distances. I think he was just getting warmed up at the end of that race. And then the others that we will use is the 9, Just a Fair Shake. I was a big fan of him, Alexa, when we talked to you a few weeks back about the Federico Tessio. I thought he ran really well. So Just a Fair Shake, I'm going to use 1, 6, and 9. Alexa, do you need a drink over there or anything? You doing okay? I can send one over your way. Okay, no problem. No problem. Let's move on to race number 11 in the pick 5 sequence. That's the next one. The 11th race is 1 mile on the turf. It's the James W. Murphy. 2 horses in there I'll be using. The number 3, Clock Tower, I think is the fastest of the speed horses. I think there are versions of this race where he might be able to get out front, steal the race, and he might be able to slow things down. So the 3, Clock Tower, I have, and a horse who I may make a win wager on too. He didn't race for a couple months, and then he showed back up at Keeneland on April the 7th. Alexa, what I've noticed is a lot of the horses who ran at Keeneland in the early part of the meet, they may not have liked the track, because remember how crazy that weather was. They had to adjust the first couple days. You lived there. You remember that
I'm
weather,
very
right?
aware.
So the track, the turf, the dirt courses, they were just different. And I think some horses didn't really like the weather that week, and they may have been kind of a little disappointing in those most recent races. So Clock Tower, the 3, and the number 7, Reagan's Wit. Those are horses who I absolutely want on the ticket. No doubt about it. Reagan's Wit, I think, is probably the horse to beat. Ran really well facing better horses at Keeneland last time out. So 3 and the 7 are the 2 horses I like the most in this 11th race. We can move to the 12th race. We just spoke about this one. This is the dinner party. And yeah, I mean, good luck in this race if you're trying to play like a pick 4 or a pick 5, or as Alexa will, a pick 3. I think you need to use as many horses as you can afford on your ticket. I wanted to use horses like the 1, Devant Propos. I wanted to use horses like the 4, Neat, the 5, Abrumar, the 6, Balnikov. I even pointed out Crabs and Beer as a fun long shot that you could include. Fort Washington is a major player. Like,
Dino's like, click the all button. If you
I
can
mean,
click
really,
the all button, click the
like,
all button.
if you can afford to do so. And if you are playing the Preakness where you're not using a whole lot of horses as we turn to race 13, you can probably do so, because in the Preakness, I'm just going to use Journalism, the 2, and River Thames, the 6. So I don't have that many horses in my pick 5 there. For a lot of people, Alexa, they may single Journalism, and that ticket could be even cheaper. But I want to make sure that I have a couple opportunities, and if Journalism does get beat in race number 13, I want to make sure that I have the horse like the 6 River Tame. So we look at the odds for the 13th race. We can show you 2 and 6. Those are the 2 that I would have. If I was going to add one more, maybe we'd be adding the 8, the 9 Goster, who I think is that fun long shot, or the 1 goal oriented, the Bavert horse. But I feel pretty confident with the 2 and the 6, who I think will run really good races. So let's pull up the ticket and let's see how much I'm going to spend on the pick 5. $144. I didn't have a single. These are the days where if you are someone who normally plays like $100, you could spend a few extra bucks on like the Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont, the Breeders' Cup days. There's a lot of money in the pools, and sometimes you can get huge payouts. If for some reason Journalism got beat and River Thames were to win, this could pay very, very well. I have a lot of opportunities for prices. And remember, as you go through the sequence, it's easy to kind of add up how much this ticket is going to cost. All you have to do is multiply the horses that you use in each race. So in the 9th race, I'll use 4 horses. 4 times 3 is 12. Then the 11th race, you would multiply that times 2. So that's how you figure out how much your ticket is going to cost. They also have wagering calculators for horse racing. So if you're someone who's a newer fan and maybe you're not someone who's the most hardcore gambler when it comes to horse racing, check out some of those calculators. They'll really help you out to see how much your wagers are going to be. So Alexa, you got your break. I'll get my break in the next segment now as we get ready for our final commercial break. We wish you all the best of luck playing the pick 5. I'll hand the baton over to Alexa. She's going to play the pick 3, going over a lot of the same races there. Are you ready, friend?
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay, don't go anywhere, folks. Alexa's up when we return from this break. For our final segment, we'll get over to Alexa for a pick 3 on Preakness Saturday. Alexa, you're going to start that pick 3 in race number 11, right? That leads right into the Preakness?
I am, yes. So race 11, which is the James W. Murphy Stakes. So I actually have my own side business where I manage a racing syndicate and I have horses, and I have run in this race before. I think my horse is years ago. I think he got last or second to last, but it was
you were a participant.
I was a participant, and I had a horse in the undercard on a big day, so very exciting. But yeah, so I'm using 3 in here. Gino used 2 in here. We're using the same horses, and I'm adding 1 more. So I'll use the 3 Clock Tower for Wesley Ward and Irad Ortiz. They're a formidable mix, even though they don't team up all that often. When they do, they win 30% of the time. This is a class really for Clock Tower. He's stepping down from grade 3, grade 2 company. And he did win a grade 3 at Del Mar last year, and then ran a couple of disappointing grade 3 efforts with like 2 months of breaks in between each one. So I do think he needs to make the lead. When he doesn't get the lead early, he's just not that effective. But other than the 8, he's really the only true speed in here. So I think he should be able to get an easy position that he wants. So I'll use the 3. I'll use the 7, Reagan's Wit, who will be the favorite in this field. He's got the fastest speed figures of anyone else. He's been running them consistently this year. This is a little class relief from his last start in the grade 3 Transylvania at Keeneland in April. He's trained by Cherie DeVoe, whose husband is one of the owners, and he's also one of the most well-known best bloodstock agents in the business, which a bloodstock agent is a person who goes and selects horses for purchase. So I think you have to pay attention when you see one that he liked so much, he had his eyes on and stayed in on the ownership side. A really lightly raced horse, only 4 starts. Never ran poorly, even though only found the winner's circle one time. So I'll also add the 8, Kurahi, which is, I think, the one that Gino didn't include, consistently improving for Brittany Russell, who's winning 31% of the time right now, has had a little over a 2-month break and is now being brought back with blinkers on for the first time. His 2 wins were when he went to the lead and essentially wired the field. So, this is a good thing. If that's what he wants, to put the blinkers on, send him to the lead. Hopefully it'll aid in that endeavor. And he has a longer price at plus 800. So that's my first leg of the pick 3. And then we move on to the dinner party, which we've talked a lot about, this really, really tough turf race. I am using 4 in here. Like Gino, I mean, I could throw in plenty more, but I'm trying to keep my ticket, a good price. So I'll use the 6, Balnikov, last year's winner of the race, did so in style with that sweeping late close. I'll use the number 9, Irish Aces, who is my top pick in here at 10-1, like really consistent turf runner. He has versatility to adapt to different pace scenarios. He's just a really honest horse. I'll use the 10, Fort Washington, who's that talented, reliable closer. He just always shows up. He's always there late on the scene. He won in the Canadian turf last out. He's got that blazing late pace figure of a 125. So I think it wouldn't be shocking at all to see him do really well in here. And then I will include the 13, Tricari at 5-2, who is that multiple graded stakes winner, the favorite, and tactical, powerful late kick, solid class edge over a lot in here, but drew that outside post, which is going to be a little bit of a challenge for him to get in and save ground. Although I think, if I recall, I'd have to look again, but the Time From US pace predictor, I think, still predicts Tricari to win. But I'm hoping that he doesn't. I mean, if he does, I could still win the ticket, but I'm hoping to get a couple of prices in here. And that's why in the Preakness in race 13, I used 2 horses. I know on my earlier bets, I singled journalism on top of everything, but that's because inside of the race, the other horses I liked are also kind of fairly low odds. And so I didn't want to put another horse on top with him.
Make your bet so expensive that it doesn't make sense. You're not winning a whole lot of return on investment.
Exactly. But in a pick 3, where I have long shots in the first 2 legs, if I get an 8-1 over a 10-1, I'm already at probably paying 80-1 odds or more. So I spread a little bit in case journalism does lose. So I'll use him, and I'll use River Thames, who, I mean, we've talked a lot about, and he'll need to take a step up, but he's absolutely capable and ran just a neck behind the Derby winner Sovereignty in the Fountain of Youth. So we can take a look at the pick 3 ticket. It is $24 for $1. You can also play it for 50 cents. So it could be as cheap as $12. If you want to add more horses in that second race in race 12, that's so tough, go for it. It's a pretty cheap ticket.
So there's an approach from Alexa at a pick 3. You got my approach at a pick 5. Big thank you to Darren Zocali. You heard some of his thoughts and his selections there. Thank you to producers Lucia and Bobby for helping us out with everything. The most important thing, folks, though, for this weekend, it's you. Who are you going to play? How are you going to play them? First, go to drf.com, shop.drf.com, or just scan the QR code. It'll take you right there for the free Preakness wagering guide. Good luck.